Hello. So it's Friday, and we are talking about apologetics. So the subject we started to talk about was, if God is good, why does He allow evil things to happen? And David Hume, just to recap what we were talking about, he proposed that if God is able, and God is omnipotent, and God is willing to prevent evil, but where is evil? Where does evil come from? If He's good and He's able to prevent evil. And we also, it was also mentioned that yes, but it doesn't, just because we can't say where evil is from or why evil is around or how much evil God allows to happen, it doesn't prove anything about, doesn't say anything about His existence. And also there is a thing whereby you impose hurt or allow evil to happen in order to prevent a bigger evil. Or for example, God, whereby God allowed bad things happen to good people so that people who are not exactly evil wouldn't be hurt yet. And it was in the book of Genesis, whereby God said to Abraham that they were going to go to a foreign land where they would spend centuries or a long time. They spent 400 years there before they would come back, because the people who had lived on the land at the time, their iniquities weren't full yet, so they weren't completely evil yet. So God allowed the Israelites suffer rather than to destroy the people who lived there, for example. But there is a thing regarding free will. And a free will is if you look at the definition, it goes something like this: that you have the ability to bring free decisions regarding things. So you're free to decide and act in a given situation. So even before you decide that you're going to freely, or even before you freely act, you still have to make a decision which you have to make freely. But of course there are those who think that free will is dependent on your brain chemistry, because if you have certain functions that don't work correctly in your brain, or there are certain issues with your brain, you might not have the ability to make free decisions. But in any case, if you look at a world, it can be argued that it's better to have creatures who have free will and do more good things or correct things, let's say, than evil things, as opposed to a world where you don't have free will at all. Because how can you, for example, create free beings, but then you say, right, you can only freely do certain things, or you can only freely behave in a certain manner? That isn't freedom at all. Because if you create moral free beings, but then you stop them from making immoral decisions, then that isn't freedom either. And that is the thing what happened in the fall. Adam and Eve, they were told that they cannot eat from the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. But they did. And whatever God said would be the consequence of it, that was exactly the consequence of it. And so they were able to make free decisions, because if God hadn't given them the ability to make a free decision, then it would never have happened. But then they wouldn't have really been free. So would God have been able to create a world where good is possible but evil isn't? well, then again you're back to the free will, that you still need the only way to you can only be free if you freely have the option to sin or not sin, or do horrible things or not to do horrible things. And the other question is it possible that God exists, but the question is how much evil should God allow before you could say that God is not omnipotent, or God doesn't exist, or God is evil? And there isn't really an answer, because how do you measure evil? What's the measurement? You don't really know. So the most important thing to take away from this is to say God allows evil is and to say he's not good doesn't really make much sense, because if you take free will into consideration, he has to let us make free decisions. And of course there will be people who don't agree with this, and it's fine, God bless them. But many think that because we have the freedom to make free choices, that is the reason that there is evil. Because if there wouldn't be evil, we wouldn't have free choices. If you don't have free choices, you can't even love freely, you can't come to God freely, you can't love God freely. So that is also a possible explanation as to why there is evil. Bye.